Just when it looked like Quadajah Johnson could be headed toward release, the state just made a move to stop it. Prosecutors have officially filed a stay. Here's what that actually means and why this is not the win or loss that a lot of people think it is. When people do the most, I do the analysis. Let's go. All right, y'all. Let's get straight to the facts. The state has filed what's called a motion to stay the mandate. In simple terms, they're asking the appellate court to pause its own ruling, the ruling that says find conditions to release Quadajah Johnson from jail during pretrial. So instead of that ruling going into effect right away, which could have led to Quadajah Johnson's being released or getting a new detention hearing, what the state is saying is this. Hold on, appellate judges. Don't enforce this just yet. We want time to challenge it. We're learning that Attorney Williams isn't the only one with a lot of tools in her belt. The state prosecution is using its own tools to fight this thing tooth and nail. So as of this exact moment, Quadajah Johnson remains in custody. Nothing changes immediately because of the stay. If it's granted, though, it keeps everything frozen in place. Now, let's clear up something first because I'm already seeing a lot of confusion regarding this move. The appellate judge ruling to have Quadajah Johnson released pre-trial does not mean that any charges are being dropped or that she was definitely about to walk free today. And on the flip side, the filing of a stay by the state prosecution does not mean that the state has won anything yet. This is a strategic pause, a procedural move by the prosecution to keep Quadajah Johnson detained during pretrial. This case is growing legs like an octopus. I'm talking tentacles everywhere. But we need to watch this part closely because the appellate court has to decide whether to grant or deny the stay. Now, if the stay is granted, Quadajah stays in jail, at least for now. The state would get more time to fight the appellate ruling with Quadajah behind bars. The state could even take the detention matter to a higher court, the Illinois Supreme Court, to continue Quadajah's pretrial detention. Now, if on the other hand the stay is denied, then the appellate ruling goes into effect. The case goes back to the lower court, that's Judge Clancy's court, and that's when we could see a new detention hearing or potential release conditions being established. This move by the state tells us one thing very clearly, and that is that the prosecution is digging in. They're not backing off of this detention thing at all. In fact, they're actively trying to keep Quadajah Johnson in custody while they continue fighting this decision. Now, I want to bring up something that's really a critical layer to this, and it's an important legal twist, if you will, that a lot of folks might be missing. And that is that the appellate court opinion that we're all hearing about, well, right now is considered a slip opinion. And what's key about that is a slip opinion is not final. That means that the same appellate court that issued this ruling to release Quadajah can still change it. Yep. You heard that right. And you want to know why that matters right now? Because the state has up to 21 days to file what's called a petition for rehearing. That's basically them going back to the same panel of 3 judges and saying, you got this wrong. And here's why. And when that happens, the appellate court has 3 options. They can deny it and leave their opinion exactly as is. Or they can modify parts of the opinion, or in rare cases, they can issue a completely new opinion. Now let's tie that back to the stay that the state just filed. The stay is the state saying this: pause everything while we prepare to challenge this ruling. Because if the ruling gets enforced right now and then later gets changed, well, that's going to create one hell of a legal mess. So the appellate court might grant the state just to maintain control of the situation, while they reconsider things. Y'all remember that dissenting judge? The one who said Quadajah Johnson is a threat to the community and should not be released pre-trial? Here's why that dissent gets even more interesting now. This appellate decision was not unanimous, meaning there was one holdout, a dissenting judge, at least one justice who already disagreed with the majority decision. That matters a lot because that dissent can influence just how seriously the appellate court takes the state's rehearing request. It gives the state a roadmap of arguments, if you will, arguments that the one appellate judge has already considered to be valid. And it increases the chances that the court could revisit or tweak its own reasoning. You see, Justice Mitchell was very clear in his dissent. He strongly disagrees with the majority's decision to allow pretrial release for Quadajah Johnson. He argues that the killing was not just a personal dispute, but a public act of extreme violence that shows that the defendant poses an ongoing danger to the community. He emphasizes the setting and the nature of the crime. We're talking about a daytime shooting on a busy Chicago street near a school involving an unarmed victim, multiple gunshots, and behavior like a fist bump afterwards that he classified as showing a lack of restraint and disregard for human life. In his view, this wasn't a contained one-time conflict. It demonstrates a willingness to respond to ordinary disputes with deadly force. Justice Mitchell rejects the idea that the danger ended with the victim's death. He argues that similar conflicts can rise again, especially under the stress of the pending criminal charges that Quadajah Johnson is now facing, meaning the risk to others is still very much real. He also criticizes the other two justices for relying too heavily on the defendant's lack of prior violent history, saying that factor should not outweigh the seriousness and the unpredictability of the alleged conduct. Importantly, he dismisses the effectiveness of release conditions like electronic monitoring, firearm bans, or geographic restrictions, arguing that they can't reliably prevent impulsive acts of violence. Justice Mitchell concludes that the facts presented by the prosecution clearly meet the legal standard of detention. He warns that failing to detain Quadajah Johnson under these circumstances weakens the law, and it suggests that courts would have to wait for another act of violence before acting, which he sees as totally unacceptable. The bottom line is that Justice Mitchell believes the defendant should remain detained because the alleged conduct shows a clear ongoing threat to public safety that no release conditions can adequately mitigate. So while people are celebrating or panicking, here's the truth. This appellate court decision is still fluid because the stay request and the potential for a rehearing. This case is still actively evolving at the appellate level. So don't lock in any final conclusions just yet. We're not at the end of the road. We're in the middle of a legal back and forth that could still shift. And I'll be watching every move so you don't have to just guess at what it means. Right now, we're once again at a waiting period. The next major update is going to come when the appellate court decides on that stay. And when that happens, I'll break it down so you'll understand exactly what it means without all the fluff. This case ain't over. It's in motion, and the next ruling could change everything. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who could use this message. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and leave a comment down below letting me know your thoughts. Do you think the appellate court is going to grant the state's request for a stay, or do you think they'll demand those conditions to get Quadajah out of jail? Meet me in the comments. We can continue the conversation there.